What's up, people? For the first time in a good long time, it is Wrestle Update. We are back. It had to be me. And of course, man, it's been so long. So much has happened this year in wrestling. We had to go on an extended break, and I'm very sorry for that. But I'm so happy to be back with my good friend, Nello de Angelis. You are back. Back after all this time. I needed you. I missed you, and you're back.
We are back. It's good to talk.
Oh my God. I can't believe we're back. It was really unexpected too, to be honest with you. When you reached out to me, wanting to, thinking about coming back, I was super hyped to do it. Of course. I was like, yes, of course. Things ended a little early this year, very premature, to be honest, but, a lot was going on. People who listen to the Eastern Lariat know how crazy my life's been for sure. You have been actually winning at life totally. I feel like you've surpassed me on every level, and somehow something ticked in your brain. You're like, no, I can't leave Dylan behind. I have to go back on there. And of course, when you think of me, and I think you'll agree with this, Nello, I know that you are thinking GCW. Am I right?
Yes.
But yeah, you've got your work on your game coming out. Are we allowed to mention that? Is that like secret?
No. The game is coming out. It's called Deep Cuts. You can wishlist it on Steam and the MetaQuest store for VR. Like I told you when we were catching up before we started recording, but the thing I've learned after almost 3 years of video game development is that video game development is either the coolest thing in my life or the only thing in my life. And for like the past 8 months, it's been the only thing. So thanks for being so down to get back in it and record again and catch up and all that stuff after, we'll just call it an off season,
Yeah, and we are planning to do a lot more shows in the near future too. We talked about it off the air. We got, with the Continental Classic coming back, we've got that. We got some pay-per-views coming up. WWE, AEW, any kind of indie shows. Like I said, me and you, honestly, Nello, like, no lie, especially if you look at GCW schedules, if you look at before this show, the last week of GCW, they had like a show every day almost. Yep. You had the Kentucky show, the Gateway to Death. It's like, man, like they're all like this GCW. They have no problem running multiple shows for sure. But I will always be here for you. I will always be here for the people as well. Thank you to anybody returning or just people are like, hey, what's the show that popped up on Cage Match? And it's like, yes, we are here. We cover American wrestling. On there, I do my Lucha Talk show about Mexican wrestling with Microman Fever. Love that guy to death. Me and Striga, Eastern Lariat, he's like one of the big people in all of wrestling. Happy birthday, Striga, by the way, out there. It is
happy birthday.
So me and him do the Eastern Lariat, and now we've got, I feel like my wrestling heart is whole again, thanks to you, Nello. And I will say this, though, and I'm saying this because, to be fair, when we did our shows before, like last year and stuff, I know that we had people from GCW that listened to our shows and people on the indies and stuff like that. So I will say what I always say on these shows when we do GCW. Last year, when you put me into it, I was in disbelief almost that I was doing it because my reputation for a long time was being this anti-indie guy. But when I watched it, I was really I liked it a lot better than I thought I did, to be honest with you, or I thought I would. And I gave it because I like to think of myself as a very open-minded person in life. Also, just in wrestling as well. I mean, I'm a very open-minded person. I really believe that's something very important in all of our lives right now. So I came in with a good vibe. This year, you bring me back to GCW. Just when I thought I had escaped the indie scene with your wonderful crime update shows that you used to do as well. I listened to all of them, of course, and they were all a lot of fun.
Thank you.
But I feel like now you bring me back with a whole new venture, and I have so many questions about this show after watching it. I came in totally like not completely blind to GCW. I mean, I knew certain things. Obviously, I know the NGI is one of the premier deathmatch tournaments. So, that's obvious. I knew that there was some falling outs with people, and one of them got resolved at the end of the show, totally unexpectedly. But I knew there were a lot of falling outs with GCW, Lauderdale, all these people, not including the namesake itself here.
Yes, that is. To have a Nick Gage Invitational with no active Nick Gage in the company was certainly a choice. And I believe it was actually recent. Gage was on a podcast. God, I don't remember what these guys' names are, but it was just Larry Legend and two other dudes who were so high out of their minds. They were just all smoking on camera nonstop. And Nick Gage is like trying to give an interview. So that was fun to try and watch. But, they kept trying to get Gage to badmouth Brett in GCW, and Gage wasn't really having it. And he basically just said, sometimes relationships have to take a break, and I think I'll be back. And, it's just right now I'm taking some time away from GCW to do my thing. He's very eloquent, seemed, after a lot of fan suppositions about Gage isn't fit to compete right now or stuff like that, or apparently it's in rehab, etc. It was good to see and hear Nick Gage in a pretty good state. So I think he'll be back eventually. I hope he'll be back for the collective. I'm trying to go to Vegas. They just announced Tokyo Joshi's coming back today, so I'm hyped.
Okay.
But I went into this pretty blind as well. Like I don't have the time to really keep up anymore. Like I'll write down, this match, I want to watch it, right? Like the last GCW event I watched was Tournament of Survival back in June. So I pretty much just tune in for the big deathmatch shows now. Like I skipped War Games this year, but the GCW deathmatch tournaments, they always deliver. I am a big deathmatch tournament guy. I just watched like UFC 1 through 10 recently. I was watching all the OGs, and there's something about a single night fighting tournament that is just so fun to you get so many stories out of it, right? And I think the main story for tonight was Sawyer Wreck and her being the hometown hero from Orlando, Florida, which I had no fucking clue going into this. So I was, pretty excited by that, but I'm rambling now, so I'll kick it back to you.
No, you're not rambling at all. But I do remember my stepdad, that was one of his favorites, was like the old school UFCs where it was all different people. It was like, we've got a sumo guy and a karate guy fighting each other. And then there's a boxer and he has one glove on his, like one. Yeah, like those kind of shows were crazy. I was a big fan of those too, just because it was such a spectacle how they did it. And there's definitely a vibe of that a little bit, like kind of an out of control, we don't fully know what we're doing type of thing with a lot of these shows. So I do totally get where you're coming from on that. I definitely am a big fan of that. Did you watch the Mike Tyson fight that happened this weekend?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So this was an exciting weekend for combat sports. I'll just say combat sports, whatever, wrestling. But you had the Tyson Paul, NGI, UFC 309. I loved the Serrano Taylor fight. I thought Serrano was absolutely robbed. But Mike Tyson, Jake Paul was painful. Just the worst of. It's like watching the fall of Rome. You're like, this shouldn't happen and people shouldn't be interested, but here we are.
And then 60 million people watch it, despite it being such obviously, like, I'm a long-time fan of boxing myself, to be honest with you. I lived through all kinds of the Floyd Mayweather reigns and all of that stuff. Like, a lot of Tyson's era was a little bit before my time, personally. Like his prime and the knockout and all that stuff. My grandma, and even my mom came over to watch it because they remember Tyson when he was winning fights in 17 seconds and all that stuff. That was a little before my time, but they were very interested in it. And I was more interested in the women's fight for sure. Serrano got robbed. Everybody was pissed at that. The crowd booed. It was crazy. Like, te amo mi boricua amiga on that one. I have to give Serrano her love on there. But the main event was just such a disaster in so many ways, including the streaming. And I mean, that's something we're going to see like play out with Raw coming to Netflix. A lot of people are worried. My girl Maddie, she texted me asking about like, what do you think? Do you think they'll be able to handle Raw afterwards? And I'll be like, oh man, they'll be fine. I'm sure it's 2 months later. And she's like, they don't have that much time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to be positive.
There's not going to be 60 million people watching Raw.
Now, that's a true fact right there. You know, listen, Nello back in prime form already, people.
They're not going to have any buffering issues. I think it'll be a good amount of people, but I think you'll be safe.
Yes, okay. See, so let everyone know Raw will be safe out there. But yeah, no, it's so a big weekend for combat sports for sure. And I'm glad that we tuned in here. But again, I knew a little bit. I knew this was Sawyer Wreck's thing, and I'm familiar with her obviously from the GCW shows we've watched before. And she had a run in TJP last year as well. So definitely familiar with that. I knew that she was going to be the favorite. Talking with you, my understanding was that she was not a favorite, more the sentimental favorite. But how they played it, I mean, we'll talk about it coming in there. But the whole show had a lot going on into it. And I think before we get into the show itself, I sent you an article on an incident that happened on this show for sure. And
breaking news, folks.
That's true. We have to credit. We're gonna give proper credit. We don't steal people's jams here on this show. We give credit, no problem at all here. And we got to give it up to bodyslam.net, who reported this and really got everything sorted. If you want to read the full saga of this, so Drake Younger, as many people know him, and I remember him wrestling back in the CZW days, for sure. He was a former referee in NXT. He went on this insane right wing, deal, like extreme, even for the most extreme right wingers. Like he's on that role here, but somehow he is a deathmatch guy. Some people would say a legend, I suppose, but he was a main guy at a certain point in his career many years ago. Suddenly, according to Body Slam here, at this very show, the Nick Gage Invitational, he has gone online and ranted and raved about how he stepped to John Wayne Murdoch, a very prominent deathmatch wrestler today and on this show, obviously. And again, I want to emphasize, Drake doesn't have anything to do with GCW, actually. Like, he was not on the show, was not booked. He had no reason to be there, but he decided to go there. He put his Facebook video up and started to rant about how he, beat the crap out of John Wayne Murdoch, pretty much. And he goes around saying everything, saying he wants to, he wants to handle things old school. Things had to get handled. Whatever it is, nobody knows for sure what he's actually upset about. But he just called him a bitch and all this stupid stuff that Drake was saying on the video. And he tried to say, oh, I'm sorry to GCW and Lauderdale and all these people. But it just had to happen. I could not wait to beat him up or whatever he said. And then suddenly, DK Summers, Necro Butcher, if you to all of our deathmatch fans out there, who is a legitimate deathmatch legend in all fairness. At first, I thought it was DK Metcalf. As I said, as a Seahawks hater, my ears perked up at this. Like, no way. But no, that's what he's calling himself now. He thanked Drake on Twitter. He talked about how, certain people have taken money out of wrestlers' pockets. How many people have gotten sent to the hospital. This is something that needed to be done. And it's a morally corrupt world we live in. This man exists in our business. And he says that he loves Drake on there. And John Wayne Murdoch, he also replied, on Facebook. He said, you can believe what you want, but that didn't happen. Attacking someone from behind is bitch behavior. I eat his punches like candy and told him that and went out and did my job. Also, I was on the phone with my girlfriend and son. So yeah, the meth head is a real tough guy. Then Drake called out Joey Janela, saying he wants to fight him for charity. What do you make of Drake Wirtz and Drake Younger and all of this GCW drama in the parking lot he's instigated?
Something about parking lots and pro wrestling in Florida, am I right? My goodness. It's like an NXT brawl. if you have Drake Younger and Necro Butcher, who are like probably two of the worst human beings in deathmatch wrestling, coming for you, it's like you got to be doing something right. I've only heard amazing things about John Wayne Murdoch. I listen to a lot of deathmatch podcasts and media, etc. And a lot of people aren't eloquent for the most part, I'll say. And John Wayne Murdoch, I think, is someone who's actually taken the time to offer perspective and commentary on a lot of things in pro wrestling, and I go back to, I remember what happened with Nolan Edward and when he was pretty much, put out of the business. And Murdoch had such an eloquent stance on it where he's like, why the fuck are we talking about Nolan Edward? He's gone. He's out. We don't want him anymore. Let's focus our attention on what we can do to help and support the victims here, right? And it's like, you don't get that kind of stuff a lot. And Murdoch is someone who's really helped the ICW No Holds Barred crew, it seems like, get booked after a lot of falling out with Danny DeMonto as well. Like Murdoch is very much like a Jimmy Lloyd style character where he gets trusted in a lot of death matches as well, I would say. This is the first time I've heard anything about him injuring people and sending people to the hospital. So unless it's just a very well kept secret, I'm like, this is so stupid. And Drake Younger just took like a big step away from the ring for like personal reasons or some shit, or like checked himself into rehab. And it seems like he is not quite healed yet. So I wish Drake Wirtz the best. Like, dude, I used to be such a Drake mark, especially when he was in PWG, when he signed with NXT. I was like, man, good for Drake, because Drake was such like a outlier, right? And he's just had such a fall from grace. So what a weird situation. And it sounds like it happened before Murdoch's match with Sawyer Wreck as well. So kudos to John for keeping his composure and still doing a hell of an entrance and just a little intro bit. I don't know if others would have been able to keep their cool as well. So yeah, hilarious deathmatch news coming out from Saturday night.
And also, Joey Janela responded just a couple of hours ago. True breaking news here on Twitter. He says that, quote, this was from Joey's Twitter page, Janela Baby at. He said, quote, I lost all respect for this guy. Was one of my favorite wrestlers in my late teens. Has 5 young children. Instead of being a father, he smokes meth and embarrassingly tries to jump relevant wrestlers in a parking lot and fails at a company he's begged to be booked on weekly for the last 2 years. Could be set for life with a 6-figure job reffing some of the biggest matches at WrestleMania, but decided to publicly spew fake conspiracy theories and anti-women's and LGBT rights propaganda on the internet and in that locker room. Now he rolls around in glass for $250 paydays and works the desk at a Crunch Fitness. A real fucking loser. Get help for your kid's sake. Ouch. Well, that was kind of what he said at the start was kind of what I was thinking. I think that in Drake's mind, he was trying to work an angle, like somehow, like turn this to like a shoot feud or something like that. Obviously insane to think like that, but I'm not
beat this guy up so we can do business. It's the Phil Brooks School of Wrestling.
or in Drake's case, much like the Phil Brooks School of Wrestling, he failed to beat this guy up. To show he showed no actual effects during his match of any of these fisticuffs. But yeah, shout out to John Wayne Murdoch. Like you said, definitely did a great job in his match and the thing that he did, no doubt. But so, like I said, no signs of any of that on the show. I never would have known it would have happened with all of these ramblings and rantings going on here. But it is important. And like I said, Drake, he's going to continue trying to get booked on these shows. He's failed repeatedly over 2 years, according to Janela, and we'll see if he keeps failing, which he very likely will, I would say. But regardless, we had an actual show to get to here, and we had everybody on here. Just came from Orlando, as Nello mentioned earlier, from the Level 13 Event Center in Orlando. And the show started off, and me and you talked about this as soon as he walked out. Man, Drew Parker curtain jerking this tournament. And because Drew Parker and Violento Jack, that's a main event level match. I'm somebody, obviously, everybody knows my background in Japanese wrestling. To see these guys who are main eventers and freedoms and all that Drew's done. And I mean, Drew, I think if you are somebody who is a fan of Sawyer Wreck too, especially considering the main event angle and what happened and how this tournament played out, I think we have to remember Drew was not that far away from retirement. He retired not that long ago. And I know when he came back, that meant a lot to a lot of my friends that were in wrestling or just fans of his. And to see Drew come back here and be in his home, it felt like a really cool thing because I haven't really watched him that much since his return, to be honest. So then you see him and Violento Jack, and I didn't know this was coming. So I was like, whoa, this is the opener. And then you were like, yeah, like you're right, Dylan. Like this was a main event level match everywhere. But as I said earlier, you are for sure the death match king between the two of us. So I want to throw it to you first here. Drew and Jack, what'd you think of this?
So it's a Tokyo Towers match. For those who don't know what Tokyo Towers is, picture one light tube at the very top. Underneath it is a bundle, and then underneath that is an even bigger bundle to where it looks just like a light tube skyscraper. One of my favorite deathmatch gimmicks. It's just a great visual. You usually have them in all four corners. You can do a best out of four and actually go through them and add more gimmicks, but they just do a classic one here. There was some really I won't get into the match yet, sorry, but totally agree with you that this was a main event level opener. I think that kind of worked against it just a little bit because when I was like, this is the opener, I go back to stuff like Alex Colon versus Akira from the NGI. Maybe it was the 6? I'm not sure, but like all-timer first round matches pretty much, like FEG Raver from TOS, just like matches that are such bangers. You're like, how is this person gonna make it to the second round, right? And I thought they gave a lot here, but it's one of those things where like I've seen both, not just with each other, but with so many others, bust crazier shit out. But they weren't really meant to, and maybe I'm being biased on that. But yeah, like this had such the lineup for this show, really great international presence. I think the only thing we were really missing was your representation from Zona 23 and fucking, Ciclope and Miedo. But yeah, this was a hot opener.
Yeah, I was really impressed. Like this was a great way to start off the show for sure. Even though I definitely agree that it was a main event quality, and I thought that myself too, that I was surprised that it happened. But I just think that the way it started off, it really set off things for a good night. It started things off the right way for me. I thought that coming in, when you see Violento Jack in here, these guys have done all kinds of crazy stuff, and I just thought that they ended up really using a lot of the stuff on the outside, like the weapons and all of that. You saw Jack, jump off the apron with that pile driver move he did on there. I thought, okay, we're not holding back anyway. And I think in general, one thing I loved about this show, and again, this match kind of set the stage for it. This show, if you're a deathmatch fan, I think it's really great. But even if you're not, like, there's certain things that I didn't love for sure about the show. But I do think this was very smartly laid out to where everything was very fast paced. There was no real downtime. I mean, the next match we're going to talk about was the longest on the show. And that was the only one that really had any semblance of real time to it. Everything else was like, okay, like we're not going to try and bother with any grandiose story or anything like that. We've already got that with the main event story we're going to tell. So we're just going to go all action, all out, few minutes, weapons, big bumps, crazy stuff happening. And I thought they used the gimmick well. And I thought in the end, this was a really good opener. And I thought it got the show off to a good start, especially for somebody like me, who's really not a deathmatch fan in general. And I fully admit that. But I thought they did a great job. Drew is one of the best. And Violento Jack, somebody I've watched for years, and thought he was one of the best as well.
Yeah, I think, very well said. And what makes this such a hot opener, as well, is the fact that they're both very good wrestlers in general.
Yeah.
Because a lot of deathmatch wrestlers are great deathmatch wrestlers, but when you have them try to do a wrestling match, not as great. Like one of the highlights from the match for me was a non-deathmatch spot where Drew went for a swanton early on. Violento Jack perfectly catches him, rolls through like almost like a crucifix pin style, and then puts him through a German suplex. I love that. that pile driver to the outside, like you mentioned, was really crazy. Massive bundle on a board with serrated aluminum cans.
Yeah.
So just some real crazy shit there. And a swanton finish. So a classic showing from Drew. I gave this one 3.5 stars. You know, I think that great death matches are really longer. Like a long death match, because there's something about when you're watching someone bleed and then they're like 20 minutes in and they're still bleeding and you're like, how the fuck is this person still going? So like, I love these short bursts, but I feel like you don't quite get the visceral level of like, oh my God, as to what you're watching, but super impactful still, and a really solid opener.
Yeah, absolutely. I get what you're saying too. When you talk about legendary death matches, I've really fallen out of love and become jaded with death matches in general over the years. I'm sure I mentioned this on one of our earlier shows, one of the earlier GCW shows we did, but when I first started watching Japanese wrestling, especially, I was never really into ECW or any of that stuff. Even in CCW, I mean, obviously I love the CCW and ROH feud, but besides that, that was never really my preferred style. My favorite kinds of death matches are the old school, like Big Japan death matches, where it was kind of built like a horror movie. I mean, we're just coming off of Halloween a couple of weeks ago. Like, my favorite horror movie of all time. I don't know, if you're familiar with this or if anybody else out there, but there's a Japanese horror movie called Audition that is like one of my favorite movies, period. And if you actually watch Audition, yes, it's a totally fucked up movie for sure, and very scary in what they do, the psychological aspects of it. But there's really like, in total, probably of an hour, 20-minute movie or however long it is, there's probably about 5 to 10 minutes of it that may be considered scary. Like legitimately, there's these key moments that are really, really messed up and bad, but they build and build and build to it. That's kind of how the old school deathmatch was, where something crazy would be built to and built to and built to, and then it would happen and then it was over. Nowadays, there's so much, it's grown to so much where, like you were saying, guys can be a great wrestler and also a deathmatch wrestler, but it's, they kind of do different things on that end. And some people like to just build up spots where they're spending all this time setting up stuff, but there's no real build to it, which I think these matches lack. So I kind of see where you're coming from on that. But I think if you look at it as a spectacle type of match, I think that's like these matches shine in that format rather than what I was speaking of, where it was the audition style, so to speak, or the big time match, the old school Big Japan match, like 2001, like big time Deathmatch Dragon, Ito Prime matches like that.
Word. Yeah, see, I start getting in like
Shadow
the
WX.
late 2000s when it's like Miyamoto, Sasaki, Kobayashi, Ito. Like, I'm a
that
big
was kind
glass
of the bridge
guy.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big glass guy.
And
I'll be honest about it.
Another thing I loved about the old school ones is that now light tubes are synonymous. Like whether it's on this show or anything in the Japanese scale, it's so synonymous that I've seen it 10 zillion times. So I did appreciate the cans because that was something a little bit different. My favorites were the old school ones where it was like, all right, we've got cactuses, like we're fighting with it, or oh, here's a batch of scorpions we're gonna throw somebody into. Like we're doing different stuff, like with these matches.
That Matsunaga match with the piranhas.
Yeah, the piranha death match. Yeah, that's another
Classic.
one where very unique match. Yeah, for sure. So that's the kind of stuff that I was into for sure here. But I get where you're coming from on that as well. And I think they're two different styles completely. The next match, speaking of Japanese, we have two here. Takayuki Ueki taking on Rina Yamashita. Rina, obviously, very intertwined with GCW as it is, and Ueki coming in for a rare shot here in the States for sure. He was in a tag title match the night before. Both of these were night before, where it was Ueki and Violento Jack. Rina teamed with Drew Parker. They also had Violence is Forever. They're the champions, of course. And Alec Price and Cole Radrick were the fourth team in that match. But he's coming in doing all kinds of stuff. He's a guy that's a really interesting guy because I always remember him as the comedic guy of Big Japan. Obviously his police officer gimmick, pulling a fake gun out on people and all of that. Um, you know, Now he's still a comedic guy, kind of, bringing in the barefoot stuff, which we would see in this match. I mean, I remember I saw him not that long ago, like a month or two ago, at Brooks's show that they had on there. They did on there. I was like, what's he doing there? Where it was like Dr. Cube was in there, and it was just ridiculous stuff going on. But he took on Rina Yamashita here. And again, a lot of this was built upon the barefoot stylings. You had Yamashita taking her shoes off. You had the broken glass on the floor they were walking through. You had him stepping on the barbed wire thing that, again, Rina joined in with. And even there was a funny part where, like, Ueki has Rina in, like, a Death Valley driver position. And he did this spot twice, which I kind of didn't like, because he did it once on the barbed wire board and then once with the thumbtacks, where he had her in the fireman's carry position, and he would do the slow stomp on the barbed wire or the tacks where he just walked out of himself before he hit the move. And even the commentators was like, why is this happening? And it was really funny. I think that was Emil J. I may have been Prazak, but one of them was like, why is this happening? Going in. You had the light tubes going in there with Rina. She brought those in, hit the splash from the top on the light tubes. It was a crazy match, and if you're a fan of Rina or this style, I think you'll have a lot to love here. But what did you think, Nello?
This was my match of the night. When I saw Ueki come out and he's wearing flip-flops, I was like, no way. Because my thought is, Ueki's not going to do a barefoot death match because he's going to have to fly back and his feet are going to hurt. And then I remember that these people simply do not think like regular people. Man, I like... So this is like Rina Yamashita in the US. Like, I don't think it's talked about enough how much of an impact she's made here, how much of a star she's become here. Like, I would say Chris Brooks is to Japan as Rina is to the US, if you're talking about successful people who went to different countries, but like are like on a television style scale, like a Zack Sabre Jr. or a Shida, right? But Rina was ultra-violent champion for over 2 years, just lost the title 30 days ago, and then comes back and, goes 2 rounds in the deathmatch tournament. So she's just so over, and she is such a expressive character. And I think that's what works so well about this match, is that Ueki and Rina are both so expressive. They had fantastic chemistry, not just from wrestling, but with their characters as well. Like a match I remember you and I talking about, God, this is maybe a couple of years ago now, but like not a great wrestling match, but such a fantastic character match is Odula Kobayashi versus Kento for the Triple Crown. Yeah. And like the whole barefoot gimmick about this was fantastic. Ueki walking through all the broken glass on the outside. We had a really awesome gusset plate spot where Rina brings them out and just hands them to Ueki, and they just basically hammer them on themselves or on each other. Start doing the headbutts. My favorite spot in the whole match was, like you had mentioned it, they brought out this barbed wire door, and Ueki finally convinces Rina to take off her shoes. So she walks, they're both barefoot on the door, and it's like they're doing spots from movies that are like considered some of the most, like I think of Bruce Willis in Die Hard walking across the glass, right? And everyone's like, oh, it's one of the most badass things. And then you see Takayuki doing it in his like floppy singlet, barefoot with some fucking police handcuffs. And you're like, this is crazy, man. Like, this is real. But so they have this barbed wire door, and they essentially probably do this like 6 times or so, where they take turns trying to hit a move on it, and each person's rolling off, falling down, getting off this door, and finally it lands with Ueki hitting a move on Rina. And do you remember, like, the ref Scarlett was trying to get the barbed wire out of Rina's hair, and it was literally like completely wrapped. Honestly thought, I think Prazak even said she's going to have to wear that home. I thought there was no way this was getting out. But yeah, the barbed wire in Rina's hair was crazy. But overall, this was my match of the night. I gave this 4 stars. I thought that it's like the perfect kind of comedy death match. You have some really sick style stuff, like, because how do you follow up a Parker and Jack match is like, you can't just go out and do the same thing. And I thought that this was one of the most diverse, just like grimace at it, oh my God, like style shit that I probably saw that night. So yeah, this was my match of the night.
I think this was completely entertaining and very character heavy, even though the violence was a part of it. Like, you cannot look at this and not love both of these people. I feel like one of my favorite parts was when they were on the outside and Ueki's just like, there's this one guy who just stands up and suddenly he's all like, hey man, like, help me out. And suddenly there's he gives the fan or whoever gives this guy an Irish whip, gives Ueki an Irish whip, and he misses the drop kick. And that commentator, they're like, this guy doesn't know how to do an Irish whip. And then Prazak's like, well, he just did on there. And it was really funny.
And Ueki fully committed to that drop kick on the outside as well. And biffed it. That was a great spot because it was right before it. Rina used definitely looked like part of the ring crew, and she suplexed them onto Ueki. So Ueki counters that with using the fan, and just great stuff.
I hope it was a real fan. I know he had a beer in his hand, but I mean, so I'm not going to put anything on the ring crew or who's working or if he's a worker or what. But hey, he had a hell of an Irish whip. So if you are listening to this, that fan, you've got a future in this business in my book. There's also a great turning point where they had like the barbed wire board where they did like 10 counters in a row to the Ueki would try to do like a diving headbutt, and then Rina would move, then Rina would go for a double stop, and he would move, then he'd do a senton, and she would move. It was a really comedic and heavy match here. So really enjoyed that for sure. Really enjoyable match for sure. I will say that it was kind of like, the barefoot stuff, I thought they played into that a little too much just because it was a little repetitive in my opinion, but it was still a lot of fun. It was the longest match on the night too, according to Cage Match, 15 minutes, and I thought they got the most out of it with the stipulation and the way they use their characters. So good stuff.
Yeah. Definitely
the most enjoyable match of the night in my opinion.
It's probably my favorite barefoot death match besides the Ueki Kasai one from a couple years back.
I remember that very well. Yeah. So then we got who's to walk out to follow that, but Dr. Redacted here. Now, I was really confused about this. Why was this a 4-way again?
Okay, so this is very much like your ICW no holds barred holdover gang. Like, all 4 of these guys were really, really big in ICW no holds barred. Dr. Redacted still is, but it definitely felt like the Brandon Kirk's friends death match, which I loved. Like, I have the ICW American Deathmatch title behind me on the shelf. I'm an ICW lover and apologist. So, but yeah, I mean, it didn't make a sense that this was a 4-way, especially when every other match is a singles. But I don't know. It worked. It was very different. And yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, so we did this thing here. It was Dr. Redacted, Tommy Vendetta, Tank, and Brandon Kirk, who is the Ultraviolet champion, which I just thought it was interesting that they did the 4-way right off the bat. It doesn't make sense overall, but I like that it was something different, right, on here. So it's like, okay, we had these 2 matches. One was kind of more of a traditional, GCW traditional, again, not like the old school matches I was talking about, but traditional GCW death match. Well done for sure. The other one was more of a comedic style, like very entertainment heavy death match. And now we've got like the grimy indie death match here that fits in with all 4 of these guys. Definitely not something that I would say if you're looking for technical wrestling, you will love. But I thought that they really emphasized, again, when you look at their style of what they wanted to do, I think they were about as good as you could get in this situation. I mean, you had everything broken up. You had the bottles. The glass was all over the ring by the end. People were getting slammed in there, dropped on their heads, including the end result with like that pump handle awful waffle that Kirk did as his finisher. I think that these guys really worked hard here, but it wasn't a very clean-cut match, even by deathmatch standards, if that makes sense.
No, by no means was this clean. This was a total plunder match. Fuckery everywhere.
Yeah. It was
I was
grimy indie style.
No, you definitely nailed it with that. Surprisingly, like, really good intros. Redacted is crazy over.
Yeah.
I could not believe how over he was. The Rev does like such a wild intro for Tank, so just want to shout that out because it's always very impressive. And I thought everyone played their roles very well here, though. Like Tommy played the lovable psychopath, just like his name. Redacted did all of his big spots. Tank was the guy to constantly take out. Like, I think one of the first spots in the match was Redacted and Tommy both have water jugs like on the end of sticks, and they're just taking turns walloping Tank in the head with them. Like, and the sounds that you're hearing from them smashing this dude in the head are just like gunshots.
How old is he? Anyway, Tank.
He was like, I'm a 24-year-old veteran. And the show had some really great video production. They did an intro video with Tank where he talked about, like shouting out people like Bull Payne and God, like all of like the
really
OG.
Old school.
Yes, the really, really old school guys, and talking about how he came from there. And, I've watched Deathmatch Wrestling for years, and Tank's never really been like a big guy, but he's been a guy for a very long time. I don't know. I thought he played his spot well. Like, he took a lot of stuff. One of the gnarlier spots in the match was Redacted set up a glass pane in front of Vendetta, who's in the corner. But typically when you do the glass pane spots, like the people are facing it forward. Vendetta was facing it from the side, and I don't know why. And the second Redacted hit it, Vendetta goes to the outside, gripping his face, and it looked like he sliced his whole fucking ear inside of his face open from that one. And so then he was walloping Redacted pretty hard after that with some receipts, it looked like. You get the Sasuke spot from Redacted going off the scaffold in the trash can. That's always a pretty popular one. He almost overshot it. It's almost more fun when they overshoot it, right? But yeah, this was probably like the weakest tournament match to me. It was definitely just all about the big spots. The big spots were fun, but I gave this one a 2.5.
Yeah, like I said, you said it right when it was more of a plunder match. I don't think this appeals to me as much as the other ones, because, we're going to go to the other one. The last match obviously had the emotional aspect, which they totally played off of from the very start. This was more, like I said, the something that I feel like, back in the old days, Ian Rotten would have tried to produce on one of his shows, type of deal. Tank may have been on some of those shows, for all we know. But it was a better version of some of that stuff for sure. And like you said, they did have some big spots. The effort was there, and I like that. I think that's something we have to really account for a lot here, because again, nobody's watching these matches for great pure wrestling. But if you're gonna try hard, I think that's a big part of the spirit of these indie shows. Like, hey, we don't have all of these advantages that the big companies have, but we have a lot of heart, and we're willing to put it all on the line for this crazy deathmatch style. And I think that they emphasize that here. But I wouldn't say it was a great match on its own for sure.
Yeah, really well said. I always have an appreciation for people giving their bodies for this stuff.
Yeah.
It is crazy shit that you're seeing. And it was a little, ICW no holds barred powwow. It did enough for me. And yeah.
No, it's good stuff there for sure. On that end. So then we had the last match of the first round of the tournament, where Nick Gage's music hit. For a second, I thought, I was like, oh wait, because I knew that they had a whatever, like a split, like whatever, mutually or whatever. So I was like, oh, are they actually gonna bring him in on this? Like, what's this all about? But no, it was the man who just got finished fighting Drake Younger in the parking lot. John Wayne Murdoch comes in. Great spot here with the Nick Gage entrance. He had the thing too carrying with him. This was like awesome, like great heat and perfect considering his opponent Sawyer Wreck was obviously the one everybody knows this is her last show. Like she's doing it for, this is the last time she's gonna put it all on the line for this, and so to have him come in and troll everybody with the Gage stuff, great spot. I thought like great. I was totally into this match right away, and like so the last match was. I appreciated the effort, but it wasn't for me per se. But still, coming in, the heat that it got was really good.
Yeah, and just also wanted to touch on from the previous one, because when you're talking about Sawyer, it made me think, but something I was really taken aback by was how little the crowd cared about Brandon Kirk, which isn't to say they were indifferent, but they were definitely not supportive of him. Kirk, to me, has been like one of the best, if not the best, babyface in GCW the past few months, especially since Tournament of Survival and then dethroning Rena for the Ultraviolent title. Following ICW No Holds Barred, I think he's been a real success story in the company. So I was expecting that sort of, fire to follow him into this, but it was like, and this was before he fought Sawyer, but Redacted was way more over than him, right? And then he fought Rena next, and Rena is also more over than him. So it's like he got no favors the entire night, and I was just very surprised by that. But yeah. So, but that's all to say that Murdoch just built himself into the most hateable heel, and Kirk just kind of was positioned at it simply by existing. Yeah, Murdoch comes out. He says, fuck Nick Gage. This is the JWI1 now. They have
and they had the graphic. Yeah, that was great.
It's so funny. And then he says, he starts clapping his hands and he says, "Where's my fucking gang at? JWMDK." So just like any way that he could fuck with the crowd using Nick Gage in the show, he did. Commentary did a great job of selling this as Sawyer's last show, the stakes that were on the line. Barry Danielson, right? When they lose, that's it, but they can keep going till the end. Match had a ton of tubes, just a shitload of glass, so it did enough for me. Really crazy choke slam finish where Murdoch straight up explodes a table, covered in tubes as well. Sawyer's never been a very clean wrestler, but she's she's almost like Deathmatch Jade Cargill, in terms of just a very physically imposing woman that like could probably and has beat up most of the guys, right? And I thought that, Sawyer does the best when she is when she is, facing adversity. Which is to say, if it's like something like a Sawyer, Casey, Rena triple threat, there's not as much fire to it. It's going to be Sawyer hitting spots. But when she's, paired against these people that you can really hate, Sawyer is just an awesome baby face. And with everything else that went into it this night, hometown, last show, tournament run, like it was just a total recipe for success in terms of her position and presentation on the show. And they did really great video packages as well, throughout the night. And it wasn't just like classic GCW, oh, we're going to advertise this. And we did get that with like the Hammerstein show. They played that advertisement quite a few times, but I would say for each match, there was pretty much a video to accompany it that was leading you in somehow or helping further the story. So you could tell that they put a lot of thought into the way that they shaped this tournament. And, with Sawyer getting the win, I can't say Sawyer's the level of a deathmatch wrestler like Murdoch, who's probably top 3 in the US, if not the number 1, depending on how you feel about Matt Tremont. But I love Matt Tremont. When you look at the semifinals, Drew Parker, Rena Yamashita, Brandon Kirk, and a John Wayne Murdoch or a Sawyer Wreck, that's awesome. Like as a deathmatch fan, I was just fucking hyped going into the semis, because it was just all killers. So yeah, what did you think of the match?
I would like to see more Gage tribute spots with the pizza cutter, but as you said, it's clear the light tubes were on the agenda here for this match, and they did a lot of unique stuff with them. Sawyer got hers, but I thought the match was really well built in terms of making her the underdog of this. You had stuff with Murdoch. At one point, he grabbed the light tubes and like kicked her like in the butt with him, like kicked her through the light tubes through the butt with him. It was a very unique spot for sure with the light tubes. They were going around like hotcakes here, and in the end, for Sawyer to come back, I thought was uh, really good. I was very happy that they didn't like eliminate her right away. I think that would have taken down the following matches, in my opinion, just for emotions. Obviously, considering it was Drew that she was facing next, you could go either way on that end. But Murdoch, obviously a big name in the deathmatch scene going out, made this win that much sweeter. I thought it was very well worked for the story they wanted to tell. It accomplished everything they wanted in this match. It's hard to argue or imagine they would do anything better in terms of what they were going for with this clear heel and face divide, which wasn't really as noteworthy. And I guess it depends on how much, because in Tank with his entrance, I mean, they said he was like the second greatest thing from Tennessee besides Dolly Parton. So if that makes him a heel, then I guess that you could say that did. But for the most part, this was not a heel face divide show. Everybody was kind of baby faces, but except for this match, which I thought they did a great job with.
Yeah, no, and pretty much all of Sawyer's matches, you had like those really intense sort of just heel face dynamics,
and the crowd was buying into it for sure, and I like that. Up next was a non-tournament match. You had Teriyaki. If you're a Noah fan, you saw him last year, and here he is in GCW. He took on Jay Lucas and Mr. Danger, a very good nickname there. And so this match was like the epitome of an indie spot fest, the type of match, I would say. Like, this wasn't a death match. It was all about the high flying and the crazy moves and all of that stuff there. And it was like, man, I didn't even have to look it up. I knew that these guys were disciples of some sort of AR Fox watching them. You even had like a low main pain type of move in this match. There was like a lot of cool stuff here in terms of like the moves they did themselves. At one point, they did a spot that really got clipped around. I saw reposted a lot last night where Teriyaki, he did like a springboard and he spun around into a destroyer from the top rope, which was crazy. Like, he like jumped over the ropes into a destroyer while he was sitting on the top rope, middle rope. It was really cool. You had the low main pain at one point. All kinds of cool moves throughout. Everybody looked good. And again, don't try and put psychology into this or any of that crap. It was a total exhibition match, but everybody did crazy stuff here. Even Mr. Danger, he did crazy moves. He had a wild like swanton bomb at one point, which is like really dramatic. It's like swan dive variation. Reminded me of Sugi-san back in the old days, Yoshitsune. But all three of these guys did crazy stuff. I was rooting for Teriyaki just for the Noah connection, but Mr. Danger ended up getting the win in the end. What do you think?
Teriyaki was in Noah?
Yeah.
What? When?
That was like last year.
Oh my God. Just a normal tour? Did he do like a juniors tournament or something?
He was there like 3 or 4 months. I don't think he did any tournaments. He was just there for a tour.
Wow.
Check him out.
Clue.
He wrestled Ninja Mac in Noah.
Oh, that sounds like a fun match.
Yeah, it was good. I think he had a singles match against. Let's look at his run here. Okay, see, look, he had a couple of singles matches against Extreme Tiger, courtesy of Cage Match. Thank you very much. On here, he was in a lot of multi-man tags here. He was in an 8-man tag. It was Alejandro, Extreme Tiger, Ninja Mac, and Teriyaki versus Kotage, Ohara, Hiroki, High 69 to some people, and Kai Fujimura here. You got an 8-man tag here. You had Alpha Wolf, Dragon Bane, and Extreme Tiger versus Alejandro, Ninja Mac, and Teriyaki. You had Teriyaki and Ninja Mac team with Keno at one point here. So he did a little bit of everything in Noah at his tour. Shout out to Teriyaki. Wow.
Shout out Teriyaki. Yeah, he love that you called out that destroyer on the ropes because that was crazy. Another move he did, he picked them up into a position. I don't know what you would call his position other than like the vertebraker setup. You know what I'm talking about? Where you have them, they're on your back or whatever, and then he switched it into a power bomb, and that fucking blew my mind as well.
That was crazy.
Yeah, like in terms of, and you really nailed it, the school of AR Fox of the low main pain as well, also from Teriyaki.
Yeah.
Mr. Danger has such a clean swanton. Like
Yeah.
anytime I watch a Mr. Danger match, like I'm like, okay, I'm going to see a really good looking swanton here. And I did. Apparently Mr. Danger got knocked pretty loopy during this match, so I'm happy to hear he's okay. But yeah, like it's funny because you were a lot bigger on the match than I was. I was kind of like, because I think of old GCW, and when like here they would do an old like 6-way scramble, right? And it was
Yeah.
way crazier. Like probably 5 minutes longer. Like you had your Jungle Boy, your fucking, I don't know, Marco Stunt. um, just way more characters. And here it kind of felt like three
Oh, yeah, there
wrestlers
was
with
none of that
very,
here.
yeah, very, very identical move sets.
Yeah.
So like it didn't do as much for me. Like I would probably give this one a 2.5 as well. But I totally agree with you in terms of they went out there and they did exactly, they did all the moves, and by no means was it bad at all. It just didn't really do much for me.
I think that had to be on the 450, Mr. Danger, because he kind of missed it. Like he overshot it. He did it to break up a pin, where he did this 450 splash, but he overshot it. He basically went face first into the mat. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that had to be where he got knocked a little silly. So get well soon, Mr. Danger, on that end. But yeah, I agree with your criticism of the match. Actually, to be honest, there was none of that character work or storytelling. This was literally an exhibition match. I thought they did really impressive moves, but obviously as a full wrestling match, I wouldn't rate this that high, but I liked it. Because it gave us something a little different. Again, you had all of the fourth round, all of the first round matches, all 4 first round matches, and then you go to this different style of match. I thought it was a good way to break it up. Again, it was kind of like, Sugar Rush almost. There's no like anything about it. It's just something to kind of get you through whatever you're doing here, and I thought it worked on that level.
No, exactly. You definitely need the palate cleanser before the semis, and God, Sawyer Wreck needs like at least 10 minutes to rest. It did its job. It definitely did its job, and I think it was, I would like to see Teriyaki and Mr. Danger and Jay Lucas against other wrestlers with maybe not as, because that's the thing, is it's a very singular identity style match in terms of moveset. So just lots of big spots, but yeah, got us through straight to the semis.
That's right. And I have to respect it at the end of the day. And would you believe it? I looked on their cage match profiles. All 3 of these men trained by AR Fox. Like you said, very similar. I do agree with what you're saying, though. In the future, let's get some different styles in there.
What is AR Fox's school like? He's just like day one. He's like, all right, you see the roof? I want you to flip off of that. You're just going to flip off the fucking roof, and then we're going to do a low main pain. And you're like, how do I roll? How do I tuck?
Don't worry about that. Low main pain.
Yeah, low main pain. Let's see it.
Yeah, like everyone, that's the rules of the WWA 4 Academy. Like you must do the low main pain.
Shout out AR Fox too. I'm sorry you're not with Swerve anymore, man. But shout out AR Fox.
That had so much potential. Don't remind me of that. I hated when that happened. Yeah. I was so annoying because remember that angle where they beat the hell out of Nick Wayne and they broke into his house or whatever? That was like an artistic masterpiece of a wrestling angle. Love AR Fox, true legend in this indie game for sure. So if you are going to be like somebody, he's probably a pretty good indie guy to model after. But they're obviously not at his level in terms of an overall skill set. But I like seeing them for what they were. So
quick question, Dylan. Sorry.
Yes.
But is there, like, if I go to AR Fox's, I'm not trying to like market, this isn't an ad. If I go to AR Fox's profile on Cage Match, is there a section where I can see who he's trained? Because I know that you can always see, like, on the actual profile overview, you can see who they're trained by, but is there a section where you can see who they've trained? Do you know?
There is. If you go to his or any page, actually, this goes for any wrestler. If you want to see who they've trained, go to their page. And there'll be a section, where it says overview and titles and matches and all that. On there's a page that says entourage. And if you go there, it shows you all the people he's trained. He's trained 42 people listed on Cage Match.
Darby Allin.
That's true.
Wow.
Let's see.
Leon Ruff. Shout out Leon Ruff. I remember him.
Yep, that's true. Let's see. Let's go through. Yeah, AC Mack. So we got him on there. Very talented indie wrestler.
Great.
Yeah.
Alex Kane from MLW.
Yeah, that's right. MLW. Yeah, champion. You got
multiple world champions.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you got multiple people on there. Even Jade Cargill, you shouted her out earlier on here, is listed as a trainer of on there. So yeah, lots of interesting people on here. So shout out to AR Fox, man. Like a legendary indie guy training all these people. Still kicking ass to this day. And yeah, like you said, we have not been paid by the WWA for Wrestling Academy, but AR Fox is there. So if you want to learn how to wrestle like him, go there, and then you will learn. But two people who were not trained by AR Fox, to my knowledge, Rina Yamashita and Brandon Kirk here. And once again, the title is on the line. Doing their thing here. So Yamashita, like you said, I mean, her match really stood out here. And, man, I thought that they did a lot here. There was a lot of stuff. I mean, we saw it earlier with Rina, where she, did the Iron Claw to the groin with the thumbtacks and stuff on Ueki.
Oh, my gosh. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So then, we were using a lot of the thumbtacks here. They were playing, dangerous games here at this match, too, with Kirk. Where even the finish where he did they set this table up in the middle ropes, right, between the second and third rope, and it was like wobbly. It was totally kind of like, remember Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle where he set the thing on the top rope to set up a shooting star. They did that on the middle rope, and instead of doing that, it was very wobbly, and he just hit a pile driver on it to win. So they were like really going dangerous with a lot of these moves. A lot of moves look great. But I will say this lacked the charm of Rina's earlier match with Ueki. I thought this was just much more straightforward. And as you mentioned earlier with Kirk, I wasn't that familiar with him, with all due respect, not hating on anybody right now. But he's somebody that I wasn't that familiar with. I've seen him work a couple of times. I'm sure me and you, we talked about him before, but he definitely didn't feel like the top star, like the champion of the company going in here. But alas, he did get the win here. Again, it moved along very well. I didn't think it was bad at all, but I didn't think it stood out compared to some of the other death matches.
Yeah, in this match, we went from just having chants for Dr. Redacted to fuck you, Brandon chants, which I haven't heard in a minute. The crowd totally turned on Kirk here. Everyone wanted Rina to win. But, Kirk, so the story here, right? Kirk just beat Rina for the title something like 36 days prior, ended her 2-year reign. So, in terms of the booking, knowing that Kirk's going to lose after this and drop the title, I think that it's nice that he got a couple defenses in and that one of them, again, was against Rina. I think it really solidified him as a champion and as that transitional champ, right? The one that was able to beat Rina not once, but twice. This was a big power moves match, I thought. Totally a straight death match, just like Jack and Drew, but you're not getting really any technical moves here or anything. One of the first spots was a Liger bomb through 2 log cabins with more tubes on the bottom of it. Just really crazy stuff. Rina going for the Splash Mountain multiple times. And that finisher move, it's a top rope pile driver that you usually see that doesn't go through anything. They're just like, hey, it's a top rope pile driver. This is more than enough, surely. And they were like, no, we're going to stand on a table and do it. And my God, did that table explode when they did it. I gave this one a 3.5 as well. So, I thought that it told a really good story. I liked the Rina and Brandon rivalry. And I'm happy that Kirk got the win here to go to the finals. Although I will say, assuming that Sawyer was going to go through, because once she won the first match, I kind of assumed, okay, she's going to go to the finals, right? And I totally expected the semis to be Rina versus Sawyer. Sawyer and Drew is a first-time match, so it makes sense. But to me, I really thought that Rina and Sawyer was going to be a swan song match for her, whether it was going to be the finals or the semis, just because, Rina really put over Sawyer a few times as well. But then as we get to the end, we learn a little bit more history with Brandon Kirk as well and Sawyer. But I won't jump ahead that far yet. But this was fun, man.
the effort was really strong here. GCW known for hating on their champions, but I would say I'll take him over Blake Christian. Instead if it was up to
My
me.
God. Do you see Blake Christian return like the night before and it was a Bobby Fish reaction?
Yeah.
It was, oh my God.
I feel kind of bad for him because on Twitter he's like, yeah, I made that video. Because everyone was talking about the video about it. It was very amusing, for sure. But I'll give Kirk his respect, especially after the main event, for sure. But yeah, the effort here was strong. They did some crazy stuff. But again, the charm wasn't there, but the effort and the crazy bumps were there, if that's your thing. Speaking of that, we have Sawyer Wreck. We mentioned her over and over. She took on Drew Parker in the semifinals here. And I was kind of like you. Like, I was thinking the only way, especially after the first match, but even before that, I was kind of thinking, man, and as somebody that's not that familiar with GCW or their storylines, I knew enough to think Sawyer has to go for the finals for the for the fans' sake. And so they kept this match kind of short. And the final, I don't know if something was up with Sawyer or something, some kind of injury or something like that. But this match was very short. I thought what did you think of this? I keep talking to take over everything, but this is like I said I was going to lean on you, and said here I am talking about everything. What did you think of this match?
I love when Drew plays heel, man.
Yeah, that was what I noticed. I was going to say that. Yeah,
he's like such a smug, like 80s looking cocaine dealer that when he plays a heel, you're like, yeah, you're a piece of shit. It just makes sense. Like this reminded me a lot. So I'm a big Drew fan. And even bigger than Drew, I'm an Emerson Jane mark. Are you familiar with Emerson Jane, Dylan?
Yeah.
Okay. I love her.
Okay.
I think she's one of the most talented women on the independents today. Feeds with Charlie Morgan, Charlie Evans, my God. Raven, I can't remember her name, maybe Raven Havoc. But she had a banger of a fucking match at TNT Thrill Kill earlier this year with a returning Drew Parker and his returning death match. And this match reminded me a lot of that. Drew playing a smug vet heel. Like there are deathmatch wrestlers that are able to wield a light tube like an artist does their pen, right? And Drew is one of those guys. He has such control over the weapons and the way he's going to break it over your head and then hold it in his hand and prick at your forehead. And it's all just so calculated and great. This even more than Murdoch, I thought. Like Murdoch was a face heel match, but it started off with that comedic stuff. This was just a very classic straight death match, heel face. Drew's going to do everything he can to put her away. And beating Drew Parker is fucking huge. Like when you beat Murdoch and Parker to get to the finals, like not only have you beaten two world champs, but you've beaten two people who have won tournaments in GCW before. So I thought this was a huge rub for Sawyer. Happy we got this first time matchup before she retired. And yeah, I don't know. It was the size disparity was also cool. I did like that.
Yeah, good points all around. I thought that, first of all, when it comes to this, totally agree about Drew as a heel. I don't know if I would say it exactly like you said it about him being an 80s coke dealer, but I liked it nonetheless. And, for me, I like that they did it this way because it's like, all right, as a booker, I think a lot of times we're tempted to overcomplicate things, if you're a wrestling booker, whereas you could easily see somebody looking at this saying, all right, Sawyer's retiring. We're going to give her a big send off anyway. Like we could just kind of ease our way in, don't put under anybody else, and just like let her put over somebody big at the end. And to Lauderdale's credit, or whoever booked this, presuming it's him, he said, no, fuck that. We are we're having this person win our tournament. We're gonna push her. We're gonna put her over the big people, the champions, our legends, everybody. And I thought it was cool seeing this match, especially because Drew was where she is right now, not that long ago, where he was ready to retire. So I think it's a good little inspirational story for Sawyer, and the way this played out, it really sets the stage up. If Sawyer ever does come back, and again, I don't know her health status or anything like that, I'm not even speculating, but if that does happen, she's got so much ready-made stuff here. I mean, I think this is another match that you could turn to with a different version of Drew in the future. So I thought the fans really bought in. Sawyer was clearly the emotional favorite, and they did the smart thing here, putting her over the top guys that made her look the best that she could as well going in.
Yeah, no, very well said. I didn't even think about the dynamic with Drew having just returned as well, even though I mentioned it.
Yeah.
No, like that in itself is a beautiful story as well. Like I think anytime that you see two wrestlers intersect, right, whose careers, whether it's a Danielson and an Edge, or to that skill, or even on the indies like a Drew Parker who we thought was done. And God, I mean, got back to John Wayne Murdoch being a horrible person, according to DK Cooper, whatever the fuck his name was. Yeah. But Drew Parker's last death match in GCW and in America was against Murdoch. So I don't know, like we really were spoiled with talent in this tournament. And yeah, they really gave, I would say, the monsters to Sawyer. Like Jack and Drew are on the same level to me. Murdoch's your biggest American guy. Like the smallest person she built in terms of, presence, I guess, or just sort of like stature. I don't know. Can't think of the word, but it's Kirk, and that's in the finals, but at least he's champion. And, there's something to be said about intergender wrestling as well. As much as I wanted like that all women's final between Rena and Sawyer, it's very impressive. Like, I'll get into this real quick, but a tangent is like I book my own tournaments for fun using like pre-existing matches, right? So it's like, okay, I want like Takeda versus Kasai to be the finals. So I need 2 opening matches, one with Takeda, one with Kasai that they both win. Then I need 2 semifinal matches that they both win, right? And I need an actual match where they face off. And so like by doing all of this research and all of these things, like you start to see that there are way more death matches with women versus men than women versus women, right? And amongst those death matches, with the exception of like a Matt Tremont or a Danny DeMonto, very rarely, if ever, are the men dropping pinfalls to the women. Like Suzu Suzuki has something like 21 death matches against men, and she has won 0 of them, right? So just in terms of booking, and I think
including in New Japan.
Yeah, against Great O'Khan now. Motherfuck. I thought we could get at least one. Shit. But yeah, I think it's really impressive to have this in the history books as well.
No, great point on your part as well. I think it's just something you can always point to for the indies that will make it unique, because we've seen AEW do like deathmatch style of stuff, not really full deathmatch, really. But they've done that style of stuff, going more to that hardcore, gritty indie style, much more than WWE ever would. But even then, this is something you will never see on a TV company. Like a woman going through a bloody match against 3 men and going through wars against them. That's something that you can't even see on that. So this really separates GCW and the indie level from the mainstream. And I think that's what you really want in a company like this, which is the alternative, the rebel company and all of that stuff. So I think that just makes it even more so a beneficiary of that style.
Yeah, and one of the things that they don't even play up is that it's intergender. Like very rarely, if ever, that I can recall where they're like, oh my God, it's a woman versus a guy. Who's going to win?
No,
it's straight up deathmatch warrior versus deathmatch warrior. And that's what I love about it. Like in deathmatch, it's like, I don't know, there's like this equality almost. Like everyone's like, it just, the things that would matter in other wrestling matches simply do not, because it's such a different fucking world.
And a different world was entered when Miyu Yamashita came out.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for this, Dylan. I've been so excited to talk about this.
Stop right there, because this was my main question going into this show. What is going on with Jimmy Lloyd?
Yeah. Like, okay, so Jimmy Lloyd joined Matt Cardona and Steph DeLander probably a year or so ago now. And he is Broski Jimmy,
Yeah, I was not aware of this.
Yeah, he wears Matt Cardona's old tights, usually like the one leg ones, the single leg boys. That legendary gimmick. But yeah, he's just the young broski in training, right? He's the internet's young champion. He's Matt Cardona's protege. When I saw GCW in, I think it was February in Phoenix or Mesa, all I did during the Matt Cardona match was watch him and Jimmy Lloyd on the apron while Steph DeLander was wrestling and just watch their facials and how they interact with each other. And it was the funniest fucking thing. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, Broski Jimmy Lloyd, he's probably one of the biggest heels in the company. You know, he's like your sports entertainment guy. But yeah, he came out here and because this is a non-tournament match, right? So just like Mr.
Right.
Danger, Jay Lucas, and Teriyaki, I was not expecting a death match, but then I see Miyu come out and she's got fully taped up arms. What was going through your head?
I totally wasn't expecting any of this. I didn't know what the deal was with Broski Jimmy on there. I was like, what's up with Jimmy Lloyd here? And to be fair, he came out in deathmatch attire. He had like the camo pants on. Miyu comes out, like you said, with the taped up arms from the hands all the way up to the elbow pads on here. She had her tights on, which there was many debates on if the tights or if the pants or her short tights were better. I've always been pro pants, much like I always am in wrestling. The true barrier of equality. Do you like pants or not in wrestling? I do not change no matter who it is, for sure, and I agree with her as well. So yeah, she comes in here. And I was like, okay, I was surprised by all of this. I wasn't expecting this at all. I didn't even know she was on this show, to be honest, before she came out. And then she
You had no clue for real?
No, I didn't know what was
gosh.
going on with any of this. And so, I mean,
You're sitting there, Jimmy Lloyd comes out first. You're like, okay, this is some fucking, grimy indie match, like you were saying. And then out comes DDT Universal Champion Miyu Yamashita in deathmatch gear.
yeah, and I was like, okay. I mean, like I said, I was like, okay, here we go. And then they started to set stuff up. There was chairs. There was the barbed wire thing. There was a glass thing that she drove his ass through. And like I said, with like, it was really impressive though. It's like she picked him up, hit him with like a running Deathmatch driver to the corner through the glass on there. I mean, everything was going on in this match, and I was just like, who is this person? Like, who came up with this idea? Why did she want to do it? Why is she here? Like, I didn't even know she was here. I was so confused at all of this. Why is he Broski Jimmy? Like, none of this made sense to me. But I was very amused by it. I wouldn't say I loved it as a wrestling match at all, but I was completely bemused and amused by this, and I kind of loved it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, this is like GCW at its core. It's like, we're gonna pit Jimmy Lloyd against Miyu Yamashita in a death match, and you're like, wait, what? Like, there's so many questions. Oh, because it's Broski Jimmy too, right? And yeah, like, I don't know. I guess Julia was backstage last night because she posted a picture with Rena. So you just had all of like the sickest.
No way. Julia was there?
Yeah, Julia was backstage.
Oh my
Rena.
God, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think Brett retweeted a picture or something on Twitter if you want to check it out. But yeah, just like all the sickos, man. Like, there's that Tokyo Joshi pool match, and you're like, okay, there's like people who are having fun, and there's people who are trying to drown the other girls. And Miyu Yamashita was one of the people trying to drown people. She has the spot at the end where she picks up a light tube, and instead of hitting Jimmy with it, she breaks it over her own head and smiles and like screams and hits the skull kick, which is like maybe going to be the most badass Miyu Yamashita gift that there is now. I love it when people embrace deathmatch. Like, it's like, we had Mao do King of the Deathmatch last year, Shima Katsumata in Tournament of Survival. We got Miyu trying it. You had, I always think of all the women in Ice Ribbon that gave it a shot. Like, there's something that I love about pro wrestlers when they try out a deathmatch, because I'm like, it's such like a, I don't know, like Swerve is someone that I've always looked to for the fact that he's done death matches. Like, to me, it's like a badge of honor. It's like, I did a fucking death match. And like, there's a very big difference between that and being a death match wrestler, 100%. but like to me, I love it a lot because it shows that these wrestlers value deathmatch just as much as wrestling, and that they see it as having a place. And like I just think of like everyone maybe grew up watching Kasai. That's just how it is.
He was somebody I pitched to be on the Observer Hall of Fame ballot, like Kasai.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah, I said that Japan region's looking a little light these days. Let's get Kasai in there. See if we get a deathmatch guy. But I did look up on Lauderdale's Twitter the Julia picture with Rita. I love it. I to quote herself, I love this. She's in the baseball jersey, these ripped jean pants. This is perfect deathmatch attire. Julia rules here for this. And like you said, all of the sickos, Rena, Miyu, Julia, like all together on this show. And I thought Miyu took it. It's not like she held back. They had that sick spot where she hit the DDT through the ropes on the board on there. She did the light tube stuff at the end. She got the win. Man, fun, very fun. Again, I wouldn't say it was any kind of great match at all, but I was completely amused and very much happy to watch this. So that set the stage for the main event. The final of the Nick Gage Invitational number 9 for the GCW Ultraviolent title. Brandon Kirk defended against Sawyer Wreck. I just thought, again, as a match, I mean, the effort was there again. Another short match with Sawyer, but the effort was there again. You saw crazy stuff going on there. The awful waffle through like 5 chairs all put together. Like he leapt up and hit it perfectly with her. I thought it was like a great usage of that spot. Sawyer was bloodied up by the end. They were going back and forth at it. Again, a very sprint type of match. There wasn't a lot to this. It wasn't any kind of deep psychology. It was just, look, the fans want to see Sawyer Wreck win this, and they don't like Brandon Kirk. They do not want to see him stop her, and they totally bought in on this. The wrestlers bought in on it. The effort was so high, and I thought they delivered. Again, the comment we had on Cage Match, about the show, was that it was kind of shorter in the main event going in there. But I thought that Kirk, I give him credit as a heel character. Once they really turned on him in this match was really when it clicked for me. I thought he did actually a really good job in his role as the heel guy to face Sawyer, and was a good kind of mountain for her to climb at the end. And I thought obviously her winning was a great call and totally fit. Somebody, again, I'm not even that big of a fan of hers as a fan, but I thought this was totally right, and it felt like a truly special moment, her winning at the end. And it was really well done for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a little bit disappointed because there's 2 types of deathmatch finals, right? There are ones that go like sub 8 minutes, this was one of them, and then there are the ones that go like 20 minutes plus, and you're like, how are these people alive? Gage and Tremont, Cologne and Koger,
right.
God, Zandig and Mondo, or whatever. Maybe it was Rotten, I don't know. Anyway, I wish it was longer, but I thought that everything was still accomplished in the amount of time that they did it. So I can't really fault it for its length. What I liked about Kirk and his heel work here is that he had a very natural trajectory to become the sort of heel that he did here after the audience turned on him all night, to where, and that was really, he couldn't have asked for a better path in terms of his character presentation and the justification for why he does what he does. But yeah, this match had everything: pains, tubes, gussets, Brett Lauderdale on commentary, which he doesn't do often. That's big match Brett there. You mentioned it. I think so. Is there a difference between the Psycho Driver and the Awful Waffle?
I think
because Kirk hits a Psycho Driver. So I was curious if there is a difference between the two.
Well, his version did a pump handle on it, so I guess that would be the difference. Okay. So I apologize for that. The Psycho Driver, not the Awful.
No, because it's the same thing as Bianca's KOD, but she doesn't spike him, right?
Yeah. Hers is a driver.
Well,
Wasn't
But
that one
man,
of like Super Dragon's finisher? He did the
that was
cutthroat
Super
version.
Dragon's finisher.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
yeah.
Oh yeah, off the top.
Yep,
So he
yep.
does a pump handle psycho driver. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
Because the
that
other
was my
one
fault.
is
Yeah.
no, because the regular psycho drivers, they put them into like the reverse fireman's carry, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And his starts from a pump handle. So yeah, it was my bad. It was the psycho driver. You're right. I would say
No, it's okay.
on there.
We're
Uh,
investigating. That's what we're figuring out because I was curious.
hey, listen, the awful waffle's a cool move too. Don't get me wrong. It just
Oh, I
wasn't
love
this
an
one.
awful waffle.
Yeah.
Waffle waffle at Wembley. Sign me up. I hope we see it again.
Yes, but
Um, yeah, no. When Sawyer kicked out of the psycho driver, I freaked out because I was like, okay, this is it. I've never seen someone kick out of Kirk's psycho driver in GCW at least, or I think in ICW as well. Like that is such a match-ending move, and when he does it on the chairs as well, like that's how he beat Shun Makatsumata. That's how he's put away so many people. Like that is his finishing spot, right? So when Sawyer kicked out, I thought that was just an awesome rub, really great spot. I don't have too much to add. I think you said it all very well, and I really liked Kirk's promo after the match. He put over
that was
Sawyer
awesome.
so well.
Yeah.
Pointing out that he was her first match in GCW, which I remember that match. It was like greasy, fucking blonde hair, mullet Brandon, and the whole thing was like Sawyer absolutely destroyed him. Like he was just kind of like the heel that came in and talked shit. She came out and she was presented as a monster. And I don't think Sawyer would have had that outright like success from the start had Kirk not given her such a star presentation, right? And I mean, like, I remember watching Sawyer before that. Like, have you ever watched No Peace Underground?
Oh, No Peace Under. That's a deep cut.
Yeah, so No Peace Underground, watching her like wrestle in that shitty dive bar music venue in Orlando. And I think he mentioned that as well. Like, that is No Peace. So it was random as hell to see a No Peace shout out in 2024, but here we are. And yeah, like it's definitely a unique deathmatch tournament where I would say it was a really solid one. Not as much for its work rate as just the story that we got throughout the night, which is kind of a rarity.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think everything on this show, if you're looking for like the big match of the year type of, even if you're a deathmatch fan, I would be surprised if anybody felt that about these matches, like really any of them. I liked how they set up the tournament because every match was different leading into the semifinals, and then it got swallowed up by the Sawyer story, which I thought was totally everything after the main event. Like you said, it wasn't an epic, legendary match or anything like that. It was a fast match, but really this was a story show. Like it didn't really need to be anything else. Everything after the main event with the promo and what we're about to talk about was like perfect. I feel like it couldn't have been better how they set it up. Like his impromptu turn at the end, the speech he gave for Sawyer after the end of it was like really good. It was very realistic, like retirement speech where you're putting over this person, and there was a lot of love and heart into it. It wasn't like a pro wrestling promo. It was like he was really, this was the real person, this is a real thing, and now it's time to lay it all out there. And and I love that they did that, and it set up her accepting the belt. She won the tournament. She talked about it. She cut her own promo where she mentioned that she wants to, they're going to set it up for January. How that's going to work, to find a new champion for it. And then suddenly Atticus Kogar comes in and attacks Sawyer, drives the skewers through her head and all of that, hits her with a headlock driver, and suddenly Brandon Kirk rushes back into the ring to save her. So Kogar back in the GCW fold. Again, this is much more your world than mine, but I was aware that there was a split between these two parties as well, much like Nick Gage. What did you make of this? How shocked were you at this, and how do you think it was executed?
I was very shocked. Once I saw the skewers, I knew it was Kogar. I thought it was going to be Cologne, because when it came out, I was like, immediately my brain starts racking. Okay, who had a falling out with Brett?
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was Gage because it was the outfit, whatever, and the size. But yeah, when the skewers hit, I was like, holy shit, it's Atticus Cogar. And then he hit his like sort of, God, what is it called? The
headlock driver.
Yes, the headlock driver. Thank you. I was like, oh my God, it's Atticus Cogar. This is his first appearance in GCW since February 5th. Like the easiest way I can explain it is Atticus Cogar basically CM punked, like 2015 CM punked GCW, where he just like got up from a show and like left and just stopped working there. And then he started Circle 6. That never really took off. Since then, he's become ICW and American Deathmatch champion.
Hey, you were at some Circle 6 shows, though.
I was at Circle 6, King of the Deathmatch. Yeah. Now he's ICW American Deathmatch champion. So, always crazy when you get the ICW guy on the GCW show, just because even though it's not like an official thing, like there is that division still sometimes, so I don't know what it has in store for him, but I mean, Atticus has got to be your next ultraviolet champion at this point. Why would you bring him back to do anything besides that, right? And really no better place to bring him back than on one of your biggest deathmatch shows of the year to assault like your number one ultra baby face at this very moment. Just a total shithead move. Kurt comes out for the save, doesn't catch him. And yeah, a first appearance since February 5th, 2022.
But he was pretty critical of GCW when he left.
The reason I said the punk thing as well, is he did like a whole podcast where it was very much like Punk and Cabana Art of Wrestling. I think it was Gregory Irons and Cogar talking.
Another long-time indie guy.
Yep. And they laid it all out. And this was not a relationship I expected to mend. Selfishly, I'm like, does this mean that Alex Colon could come back? Because that's my guy, man. I think that he is like the best deathmatch wrestler. But yeah, no, this was a huge, huge angle. Like, you lose Sawyer Wreck and you gain Atticus Cogar, like pretty much in the same moment, which is massive for GCW. And I'm excited to see what comes out next.
Yeah, because I do remember that making a ton of waves, like his interview that he did and criticized all kinds of aspects of Brett, the locker room, like the company. He really left no stone unturned, and he's wanted to lead a better life for himself. But to see this was a shocking angle. I know it made a lot of waves on here as well. Even this year, I mean, listen, this man has had an NWA title shot this year there. So even Billy had Atticus Cogar approved him here. I just thought the execution of it was great. Again, I'm not really into him as a fan or anything like that, but I thought that the execution of it was really strong, and it set up perfectly the next chapter. And again, especially for somebody like me, this is another thing I like about GCW. Pretty much every time we've watched them, there's been some kind of angle that made me want to watch the next show, right? Regardless of it, you are the one that brings me in, no lie, Nello, but they always set something up, some kind of cliffhanger or something like that. It feels like, to set things up on the next show. It's kind of like I remember last year when we did our first GCW show. It was like the anniversary show or whatever, and they did the whole angle that set up the War Games match, like last year.
Oh, with Freedoms coming out. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, like I want to see where this goes, like what this War Games match is going to be like. Now, same thing with here. Again, I'm not really even fans of any of these people, like as wrestlers personally, but I liked how they set up the angle. And it's like, okay, I want to see where this goes. Like, how is everyone going to react to Cogar coming back? What are they going to do with the belt? Like you said, I think your way is probably the absolute smartest thing they could do, but we'll see. There, Brett, if you're listening, message Nello, let him know what the deal is with Alex Colon. They're a long time Like somebody who was like huge in the deathmatch scene. I remember a ton of people
Oh,
like,
dude,
yeah.
he like talked about Brett's daughter and wife on like an
Oh.
XPW show. I don't think he's ever coming back. What he did was very not cool, as I will say.
Well, that is the one show I've sworn to never watch is XPW.
Also, okay, back to the John Wayne Murdoch thing. Really surprising that the dude who's been adamantly against ever working for Rob Black is hated by the two XPW guys. So
yeah, like I said, that's the one company I've sworn. So you've got an ally, GCW. That's the one way I'm a GCW ally is being anti XPW for sure. So I'm on board with that. And obviously that stuff with Drake was just completely ridiculous. Like I said, very shameful. But not on John Wayne Murdoch's part, obviously, or anyone in GCW. So, good stuff there. Well, with Kogar, I thought the angle was great. A lot of people were talking about it. The crowd reacted big to it. And it was just great. And on top of it, again, kind of what I've said with the match with Drew Parker earlier, I was thinking it already, but especially after this angle, this does open the door for a return in the future for Sawyer, to be honest. Like, if all works out health-wise, that would be something you would want to play off of at some point next, even if it's later in the year or whatever. I thought that was smart to leave that door open overall. So in terms of how they laid out the show, it was very good. I liked everything they did. I liked that they set things up for the future. You had a huge angle to close the show, perfectly booked, and the promos by Sawyer, but especially Kirk, were great. The crowd was rowdy for it. You had a lot of differentiated stuff early on. You had the unique non-tournament matches, especially Miyu in the death match, which was just ridiculous and insane and crazy. This was like a fever dream of a show to me in general. Again, I will stress that I'm not heavy into the death match, but I have to say I didn't regret my time with this show at the end. And I kind of never do. I always kind of end up leaving it like, hey, like I said, they always leave me with something to look forward to, like some kind of hook. So I do like that for sure. And overall, I do agree with your perspective though about there not being epic death matches, or anything like that, or any great matches really in general. But there was some good stuff. There was a lot of fun stuff, and I thought the story worked for this particular tournament. Perhaps next year we will see that kind of all-star level tournament with the great stuff and all the crazy stuff that we can get there. But for this year, got to give a slight thumbs up, in my opinion. Again, this is for somebody who's not a fan of GCW or death matches or anything like that. But for me, Nick Gage Invitational 9, got to give it a thumbs up on my end.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. Honestly, my biggest complaint would be I wish it was in a different venue. So many of these deathmatch tournaments are typically like in the Showboat, and that's just a really nice big venue. You get a really big looking crowd. It's impressive. This one did feel like a little bit smaller to me. So I mean, and I always want a bigger stage for deathmatch wrestling, but 2 thumbs up for me. I thought that this was a great deathmatch tournament. Like you said, the story of Sawyer carrying us throughout the night, good matches, great cast. Yeah, I thought everything hit, and a really, really big angle to take us home. And then we set up the match for Hammerstein. Also wanted to add that Mance Warner came out before the main event and cut a promo as well.
Oh, yeah.
Building up the GCW. Maybe we can watch that. They're doing the show at the Mall of America or whatever, the one in New Jersey or something like that. But it's called Dream On. And the main event is Effie versus Mance Warner. Doing the Cody Rhodes bit where if Effie does not win, then he can never challenge for the title again. And also, Mance is a hell of a champ. I'll add that I think that Mance Warner is probably the best GCW champion since Ricky Shane Page. If I'm not mistaken, the lineage since has been Gage, Moxley, Gage, Cardona, Gage, Moxley, Gage, Masha, Blake Christian. Masha never really got a shot with the title. Blake Christian, and now Mance Warner. So Mance, it's been really nice to have consistency. I think he's a hell of a promo. Really fucking great character. I like his matches. So I'm just really happy that GCW has, like, I would say, an actual world champion again that people can get behind, whether you like him or not.
Yeah, he has an extensive indie history before that, even in MLW and stuff like that as well. So shout out to Mance. We will see what the future holds for GCW as well as the show. But we are planning to do some stuff for at least the extended near future, for sure. Like I said, we'll always be here on Cage Match. We've got the YouTube. I'll work on the other stuff for sure. But it was a ton of fun doing this again, man. I'm really glad we got to it. I know your game's not coming out for a little while now.
Yeah, you can wish list it now on Steam and the MetaQuest store. Search Deep Cuts, and that is the game.
And I'll put the link. I'll ask you for a link and I'll put it on there if you want as
Much
well.
appreciated.
So yeah, absolutely. So everybody check that out. Got to be some cool stuff in the future for sure, and cool stuff for Wrestle Update as well. Really looking forward to all the big things coming on in wrestling. Don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years. Someone once told me that before. But as always, check us out. We're on the Twitter, the X, the Blue Skies, all the same. We got those links on there. If you want to click, you want to check us out, follow us, talk about wrestling. Like I said, this was a deathmatch show, but we will do the mainstream stuff as well, obviously. That's something I have all this years of experience with, but I love doing the shows with Nello about the indie stuff and getting to know more people and see new people, and hopefully you guys did too. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, had a lot of fun, and thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. Even after all this time away, I've really missed doing this show in particular, and I'm so happy to be back for it. So thank you guys so much, and as always, I love you. And until next time, goodbye.